Kristen Jennings with Neighborhood TV, and each week we're talking to a different police chief, local sheriff, about the issues that they're seeing in their specific communities here in the North Metro area. And today I'm joined by Chief Jay Parrish. He's the police chief with the city of Gainesville. First off, hello to you. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Christian. Thanks for having me.
So I want to dive right into a topic that you told me ahead of time you really wanted to talk about because it's a problem. It's something you feel the community needs to hear about right now, and that's fentanyl-related doses. People are dying from this, right? And the state is saying that they've seen a drastic increase really since the start of the pandemic. So what are you seeing right now there in Gainesville?
So here in Gainesville, this is kind of our number one problem to attack. Just through July 31st, we had 51 overdoses that were not death related. Those are people that we were able to use Narcan on, that our officers carry, some advanced life support like AEDs and CPR to actually get those patients back from deadly fentanyl overdoses. I saw a statistic yesterday where nationwide we had over 100,000 deaths fentanyl related in the year. And that's, used to for a healthy young adult, male or female, a car crash was their greatest chance of death. And I saw 18 to 45, the number one cause of death is fentanyl overdoses. The pandemic really locked us down and kind of woke us up to some of our health related things. But the way this fentanyl is being peddled, the way it's being put into drugs and used, it's really scary. I mean, there's cases, not here in Gainesville, but there's cases that I've read about where just marijuana, recreational marijuana in Colorado was laced with fentanyl and the patients died. Here we've had, I think, over 20 deaths this year. Some of those we're still waiting on some toxicology reports back, but everything on the scene seemed to indicate fentanyl overdose. And some of these patients know they're taking fentanyl. They're just not sure of the doses. But what's really scary is they're putting this in other drugs. And the patient doesn't even know that they're getting fentanyl. And it's almost an immediate death if their body's not ready for it. And so, that's something that I think should cause huge public alarm. I'm working with several different focus groups here and stakeholders here in Gainesville to attack that and figure out how we can get help to the user. These people suffer from substance abuse disorder. Which, the American Disabilities sees as a disability, and then turn around on that same, get with our state and federal partners to crack down on the people dealing this poison in our community.
And does each officer have Narcan with them at all times?
Yes, we do. And, this fentanyl is so strong that we've had to deliver 3 and 4 doses to get the patient back just breathing again.
Wow. 20 deaths this year just in Gainesville?
Just in the city limits. And I, most of the time is coming probably from the same dealer. And so our, the GBI's drug office and our partners in DEA Atlanta have really stepped up to give us some assets to try to pinpoint these cases and tie them together to see if we can come to a common link and actually find who's selling it and charge them appropriately.
And I know I've done some stories, and you're aware that there's been a big crackdown, right, on drug dealers themselves and the people doing the trafficking. And there have been some cases where people have been charged with murder and I believe have gotten some convictions, right? Can you talk about that? And I know this is a statewide effort. What about you guys there in Gainesville?
Right. So those cases become very complicated, but we did charge a guy in May for a February death that, we were able to use some text messages and actually see that the dealer knew what they were selling, knew that it was dangerous. And felony murder in Georgia says anytime you're committing a felony, which selling of Schedule I narcotics is a felony, and that felony attributes to someone's death, that it's felony murder. So he was charged with felony murder, and we'll continue to do that. If we can show that, that there's they didn't go somewhere else and buy another another thing of drugs. If we can get that direct linkage and associate it to the death, then we're going to charge the person that sold that with murder. We had somebody in their 60s pass away from what we suspect to be a fentanyl related death. So gender, it doesn't matter their economic status, their race. It is crossing every boundary, every way that we, whatever your socioeconomic status is, we're seeing it being affected in those areas, from the poorest of the poor to the richest of the rich. Opioids and this fentanyl is really making its way in. And, I can kind of give a story of a local person, 17 years old, playing high school sports, has a pretty significant injury and is prescribed opioids after the surgery, and becomes an addict, from that little bit of opioid, and then not given the right treatment to wean themselves off of it when the injury is healed. And many cases start like that. Some just start with recreational use. But you asked me about it being laced. Here in Gainesville, one of the cases, or not one of the cases, many of the cases, we have found where the subject took a pill that they thought was something else. They thought it was some other opioid like Oxycontin or Loratab. But what it had been is not pharmaceutical made. It had been crushed down by the drug dealers and sprinkled with fentanyl, and then repressed in a pill press to look exactly like the way the manufacturer would sell the pill to the pharmacy.
I want to read one stat I found. According to the Georgia Department of Public Health, from 2019 to 2021, fentanyl-involved overdose deaths increased by 218%.
Right.
So anything else you want to address, on this topic?
Well, and I've kind of said this here in some public events in Gainesville. What if our murder rate or our rape rate increased 200 and 300%? We would be rioting in the streets to stop the violence, right? But it's the people that are affected get on board with this, but the public alarm just hasn't been sounded.
It's so frightening. And I know parents listening to this, it's got to be frightening for them. So talk to your kids, right? And that kind of
That's right.
leads
Absolutely.
into the next topic of just school safety in general. We've launched a new school year. So school safety is definitely still at the top of parents' minds, I think, especially because of what happened in Uvalde, Texas, and that happening right there at the beginning of the last school year before summer. And then you guys launched something new in Gainesville, and I know that was the school board, but that now there are armed security guards at every single City of Gainesville school. Is that right? And what's the involvement been with the police department?
So it is a tight partnership, and everything you just said is exactly right. Our school safety is priority number one for us. A parent should be able to take their kids to school, put them on a school bus, and know that they're going to return to them safely. But, as gun violence goes across the country, one of the things that I worry about as a police chief is a copycat, somebody that's trying to make their namesake, just like they did in Uvalde or Sandy Hook or any of the other horrific shootings that we've had. So it's a multifaceted approach. Inside the school, we have school resource officers that try to keep their pulse on the kids to be an open source, so that if you have that kid that's struggling or been bullied or having homicidal or suicidal thoughts, that we're able to reach out to them and get them the resources they need before it's too late. And that we're acting on tips that we get of students that may be intending threat, even if it's just a fight in the hallway. Not just mass shootings, but any kind of violence that they may be considering, to include harm to themselves. And then Dr. Jeremy Williams, and he's the school superintendent here in Gainesville, and under the leadership of their school board, did vote and pass to hire armed security at all 9 of our City of Gainesville schools. He and I talked at length about it after Uvalde. I think it is a great idea. The school resource officer can't be everywhere.
And what about the training that your department goes through to be able to respond to an active shooter?
Right. So, the FBI put out an initiative back in, I think, 2012, 2013 through the University of Texas for what we call alert training as an active law enforcement rapid response, so that regardless whether it's the City of Gainesville Police, along with a state patrolman, along with a DNR ranger and a Hall County Sheriff's deputy, we all have had that alert training. It's being taught from the Georgia Public Safety Academies down in Forsyth, kind of under that state purview, that we all respond the same way, that we know what each other are going to do when we go down a hallway to attack that active threat. So we just kind of brushed up on that throughout this summer. While our schools were closed, our training division conducted multiple sessions of that, both inside the schools and inside some areas of our hospital, which is another huge target, soft target, I would say. And so the hospital invited us in, and as these school security guards get up and running, then we'll be doing that training with them.
Well, Chief Parrish, is there anything else that I haven't asked that you want to talk about? Any recent cases you're working on that you need the public's help with, or any crime trends that you're seeing other than the fentanyl related deaths that we talked about?
No, I would just kind of tie on to the fentanyl thing and say that on August 31st at 6:30 here in Roosevelt Square, which is right outside our city hall, many of our community partners will be participating in what we call Hall Recovers. It's a night of remembrance and awareness for drug overdoses. If you have a family member that has died from an overdose, then we're going to have a candle lighting at the end of the evening when it gets dark to remember those that have died, but also just to make the public aware. At 6:30 to 8:30, there'll be food trucks, there'll be resources there, and then we'll end the night with this candle lighting. August 31st, downtown in Roosevelt Square at 6:30 to 8:30. You can go to our Facebook page for the Gainesville Police Department. There's a posting there. You can find out more and how to submit names of loved ones that you may have if you want their name read aloud. Our partners at Jay's Place, the Northeast Georgia Health Systems, and Chamber of Commerce are all pulling together in the city of Gainesville to make this happen.
And we'll make sure we're there too. Thank you so much, Chief, for talking with us today. I really appreciate it.